Hello, everyone, and welcome to East Texas Today on KETK Plus. I'm Paulina Mata, and I'll be your host today. Today, we're starting off our show a little differently. We have a special guest here to tell us all about the access and affordability of childcare in East Texas. Joining us today is Dr. Cecilia Cuellar from the Hips Institute of Business and Economic Research. She was a part of a study that looked at childcare, its access and affordability in East Texas. She also worked alongside Dr. Manuel Reyes and a student, Sarah Maldonado. Dr. Cuellar, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here, Paulina. I'm really happy to share our findings. As you said, my co-authors, Dr. Reyes and Sarah, we work together to try to understand childcare issue here in East Texas.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for being here. I'm really looking forward to diving into this topic since I know it's on the mind of a lot of parents here in the area. So let's start off. You kind of told us a little bit, but what led you guys at the Hibbs Institute into looking into this topic? And also tell us a little bit about the current state of childcare in Texas.
Okay, yeah, of course. Well, of course, we start with a question. And the question was how childcare is doing in terms of cost. And what we find out first is in Texas, childcare between the last 28 years increased about a 52%. And if we compare this number nationwide was only 42%. And from my perspective, it's even worse because if you compare with general prices, is general prices in the same period increase a 36%. And for example, what is the meaning of this? That means that a childcare, now families are paying more to take care of a child than even that overall cost of living.
Yeah, and so you kind of answered my next question, but it's okay.
Okay.
Maybe you could expand on it, like who is most impacted besides the children? And then also, what is the trickling effect on other Texans?
Okay, yeah. Of course, if we analyze a childcare, for example, affordability, we did this at the HEPS Institute. We create an indicator that help us to measure how much of the family income goes to childcare. So if we analyze this, we have two components. One is the cost of childcare, and as I said before, this has been increasing in a faster pace than even wages. And the second one is income. So that being said, low-income families should be the most impacted because low-income families need to assign more money to childcare. So one is low-income families. The second one, there is for example, women that wants to stay in the labor market or even enter in the labor market. And if the cost of childcare increase more than what they can afford for doing a job, I mean, it's hard for them to enter or to stay in the labor market. And I think the third group we think is the most impacted is even the children, because there are a lot of evidence that said that children, if you educate in early stages, the children, they can have a better future. They can have better income. They can have a higher mobility in their families. So I mean, we are not only impacting now, we are impacting the future with the childcare cost.
Yeah, and you mentioned this index, which I can actually pull up right here. And if we take a look there, we see a few counties in East Texas, but also a dotted blue line. Can you tell us a little bit about this line?
Oh, yeah, of course. So the U.S. Department of Labor has a benchmark that they called if families how much the families needs to allocate money for childcare. And for example, the U.S. Department of Labor says that childcare is affordable if they allocate just 7% of their income. And if you see in this graph, in any county here in East Texas, the one we analyzed, there are 23 counties in East Texas, no one meets that benchmark. In East Texas, are between the families allocate between 9 to 13% of their income. So we are kind of far of that benchmark. And as I said before, one of the reason is because we here in East Texas that we have a lot of families with low income, even is lower than the median family income.
So the orange lines represent how much of the income from each household is going into childcare.
Yes.
And then the blue line is like the measure of affordability.
Yeah.
Okay.
For example, if families allocate 7%, that means that a childcare is affordable.
I see. Okay. And we also learned from your research article that there are 39 zip codes in the Tyler area that are classified as childcare deserts. Could you explain what a childcare desert is, and then how are those formed?
Okay. I mean, this is a metrics made by a nonprofit called American Progress. So what they do is try to measure the availability of childcare. For example, in a childcare desert is a zone. In this case, they do for zip codes. Zip codes. It's a zone where at least you have 3 children per one seat available in terms of childcare. So that means that if you are located in childcare desert, there is not enough availability of seats for the children. And in the nationwide, I think the U.S. population, it's about 50% of the population are located in childcare desert. And as you mentioned, here in East Texas, there are 39 zip codes that are classified as childcare desert. And for example, this problem just increased after pandemic because pandemic just impact some childcare providers and they just had to close, or now they have shortages of staff. So all these childcare desert problem just increased after pandemic.
And for these people living in these childcare deserts, how have they sought out like relief, or what are they doing instead of being able to put their child in childcare?
I mean, I don't have the answer because it's pretty difficult. We just analyze numbers in average. So, however, what have we research was about that there are some programs that subsidize childcare, and there are sometimes some initiatives where the employers just help to relieve that burden for families. But I mean, in terms of what I know now, in terms of East Texas, there are some initiatives that came from a state level. For example, Texas 20 a nonprofit. They are trying to analyze what is happening here in East Texas in terms of childcare. They are survey families, childcare providers, and even staff to understand the problem. Because, I mean, first, if you want to have a solution, you need to have what is happening. You need to know what is happening. So now I know that this nonprofit is doing this initiative here in East Texas, and there are others associations that are partnerships between the public and the private that they are trying to find out how to help.
Yeah, great. And you also mentioned a little bit earlier about how this is also affecting parents who can't be in the workforce because of this. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and what it means for the local economies here in East Texas?
Okay, there's evidence that said that regions, and they have for example, policies that are related to childcare reliefs, they have an increase of labor force. The estimations are about, if you are located in a region with subsidies or with programs that help childcare, it's about 3 percentage points more than those that who doesn't have any support. So I see, for example, from my perspective, I see childcare not only as a family issue, as a workforce issue. Because if you support childcare, there will be a group of maybe mothers that are the most impacted, that you can just put it in the labor market. And as a community, if you have more people working, I mean, that translate to a better economic output.
Yeah, and this might be a little out of your realm of research, but I'm interested, is it possible that the high costs of childcare could impact birth rates also? Or if you don't really know, what do you think?
Okay, I mean, I saw this question when you put it here. It's outside what we did in the brief. However, yeah, there is a growing evidence, and many economists and demographers are trying to find out if there could be an association between childcare prices, or the increasing cost of childcare, and a birth rate. And yes, I mean, there is a relationship there. It's not conclusive. However, imagine if the cost of childcare increased more than wages. Of course, the question is, okay, first, do I want to? Can I afford to have a child? And the second, maybe there are ones that say, yes, I want to raise a family, I want to have a family, but how many kids? I mean, in the past, maybe they had 4, 5 kids, but now I think here in the US, it decreases 2. So, of course, prices always, or cost of living is related to this topic.
Yeah, well, I think that was a great answer, anyways. And now that you've done this part of the study, what's next? What else are y'all looking at in terms of childcare in East Texas?
Okay, now I'm working with Sarah. We are trying to find out this relationship between the increasing the childcare affordability index, and how this is impacting the labor force, specifically the maternal labor force. To have some numbers and see, okay, if the cost of childcare is increasing in 10%, how many women we are losing in the labor market, or how many women are just having to pass from a full-time job to a part-time job. So we are working on that, and as well, we are trying to map the childcare deserts. So are the 2 projects we are working on. So stay in touch with us.
We'll be very excited to have you back maybe to talk about that soon. Of course. And as we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add about childcare in East Texas, or your research that we didn't get a chance to talk about today?
Well, maybe just to conclude, as I said, I see childcare not as a family issue. I see childcare as a economic infrastructure. For example, same as local governments or state governments invest on roads, on schools. I think it's important to invest in childcare, because it's the foundation of a economic infrastructure. For example, if we want that family stay here, grow here, and live here, we need to invest in infrastructure, right? And from my perspective, childcare is part of that infrastructure.
Great. Well, Dr. Cuellar, it was a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your research with us.
Thank you, Paulina.
We'll now be going on a quick break, and when we get back, we'll be taking a look at what's going on in East Texas. See you soon.